One of the things that makes Vedic astrology very useful for timing of events is the Dasha system. So the Dasha is the planetary time period, and there are 9 of these that we go through in a lifetime, making a 120-year cycle. So it's called the Vimshatari Mahadasha system. Vimshatari is Sanskrit for 120. Mahadasha is the great planetary time period. So in the ideal human lifespan, we've got 120 years to work out our issues and live through our karma and experience the positives of life as well, and the positive karmas and the negative karmas and the neutral ones. So we've got all of this in our lifetime, and it goes through this cycle of the 9 grahas. And there's a whole longer story to this I'm not going to go into today, but I go into it in the mentorship program I offer. But if you want to know what dasha you're in, just go to quietmindastrology.com, get your free birth chart, and it'll look at like 3 planet names. So to say like SA, that's Saturn, Saturn, Saturn. So there's 5 layers to this dasha system actually. But you just need to know the first layer. That's the Mahadasha, the great time period. And it'll be the first 2 letters of that sequence you see on the birth chart that you get on my website. So if it's SA, it's Saturn, meaning you're in the Saturn Mahadasha right now. If it's SU, that's the sun, you're in the Sun Mahadasha. If it's MO, it's the moon, you're in the Moon Mahadasha, and so on. I'm going to share a bit about all 9 of them and what it means for 2025. Because when you're in a dasha, that planetary energy is more activated for you that year through that time period, which is not just the year, but it's the whole time period. But we're talking about the year because that's how we kind of chunk out time in the Western world. We focus on years like this. But just to say that right now, if you're in the Ketu dasha, the Ketu transit happening in 2025 is going to impact you more than others. And what that means specifically, interpretation-wise, I'll share today for each of the dashas. And if you want more detail on all of this, go to mindfulnewyear.com. And I have written reports on all of the dashas for 2025 and what that means for you and how to work with it. So that's mindfulnewyear.com. But here, I just want to touch on each of these because it's such a big deal. And we all know, if you're listening to this, you probably know, like to listen for your rising and moon sign and to horoscopes and to know like what's going on there. But the dasha has a huge impact. And I talk about karma because there's sometimes this metaphor used with the dashas that it's like your life is a tree and it's a tree that bears fruits. And which fruits are ripe when is the dasha system. So like if you're in the Venus dasha, the Venus fruits are now ripe to be eaten and experienced in your lifetime. And say you go through your Venus dasha in your 20s, 30s, that's the good time to get married, to focus on your expression of your love, your beauty, your art in the world, your creativity. But then at a certain point, that has passed. And now you're into, after Venus comes the Sun dasha, which has a very different emphasis. And it is all going to depend on your unique chart. So when I say Venus, I'm talking about the generalities here. But if I was looking at your chart, it might be that it's Venus in Aries or Venus in Taurus or Venus in Gemini, and that's going to be a different interpretation for your chart. So you want to know your own chart and where things are placed. And that's what I teach at the 7 Steps to Become Your Own Astrologer workshop, quietmindastrology.com/7 steps. That's coming up very soon. You can check that out. But today, for the sake of this, just knowing that you're in a dasha, there's certain fruits that are ripe for you right now. And this is the year to experience those karmas or those fruits. And karma, of course, is not good or bad. It just means doing or action. So like if you push a domino, it has a effect that's going to now push the next domino and the next domino. If you are kind to people, it's going to have an effect that is likely going to beget more kindness in your life. If you're nasty to people, it's likely going to create more nastiness in your life. So it's just a sort of natural cause and effect of the world is what we call karma. And usually that's used in a pejorative or negative sense of your karma is going to bite you in the ass kind of thing. But it's not necessarily all bad. It's just like whatever you're putting out into the world is going to come back to you in some way. And you can test this for years and see for yourself. And I'm sure you have seen this by now. But when we look at the dashas, it's the karma coming back from past lives and past incarnations, because we know energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes forms, and it changed forms into the food, into the bodies of your parents, into the single cell organism that you started as and I started as, to become trillion cells that we are now. But it's all just an amalgamation of different foods we've eaten, oxygen we've breathed in and out, and carbon dioxide and everything. So it's just this continual circulation of energies that keeps moving, and those energies have energies within them, and they come through, and they pass on, and they have this sequence of events like dominoes, and that's what we call karma. So when you're in a certain dasha, that karma is now present. So that's a quick overview of the dasha system. Of course, I go in much more detail in the mentorship program and other things I offer. But if you want to know for 2025, go to mindfulnewyear.com. And if you want to know how to start to really interpret all this yourself, go to the 7 Steps workshop. But let's look at each dasha now. And I'm going to go in the order of the dashas. So this is actually the order that's used in the dasha system, the Vimshatari Mahadasha system, that is the most common and the one that I emphasize the most. There are actually many other dasha systems, but this one is the order we go in, and why this order is another longer story for another time. But we're going to start with Ketu Dasha. If you are in your Ketu Dasha right now, and you go to my birth chart calculator and you see KE as the first 2 letters on your Dasha chart, that means you're in the Ketu Dasha in 2025. And this is an overall a theme of learning to let go. It's a 7-year cycle where the theme and the lesson is to let go. And let go and let God. Just a nice phrase. You can replace God with God of your understanding, spirituality, source, whatever. But in these 7 years, the big theme is learning detachment, exploring spiritually, going more introspective, and going more within. And the more that you seek and try to find yourself and your meaning and your purpose in external material things, the more likely you will suffer, because those things are impermanent. Life is always changing. And Ketu is that lesson in detachment and aparigraha, non grasping in the 8 limbs of yoga, and to connect to a more spiritual path. Now, for most of us in the Western world, this is quite uncomfortable, quite scary. And a lot of people fear Ketu Dasha and think it's a big problem. Like, am I going to lose my marriage? Am I going to lose my house? Am I going to lose my job? These things can happen if those things are no longer in service of your spiritual path. If you're just holding a job for money and fear of losing your job and just trying to stay afloat and just like getting by month to month, and it's all just like this house of cards that you're just desperately holding on to, and it doesn't feel aligned anymore, and you just kind of ended up here, yes, K2 might come through like a gust of wind and blow down that house of cards. Or it might have you connect deeper into some deeper connection of why you're doing all this and what it's all there for. And you could sustain all of these things, but with this deeper anchor into what really matters to you, this deeper connection to higher purpose, a spiritual path. This can look many different ways. It could be literal Christianity or Hinduism or Buddhism. It could be just becoming very devout into agnosticism or any spiritual path. Like whatever your sense of like meaning of life is, that is what K2 moves you closer towards. And for all people in K2 Dasha in 2025, you're moving closer to your sense of source and needing to let go of your ego more, because K2 is going to go through this transit into Leo, where it's about letting go of ego and identity and the masks that we hold. So there's some more explanation in this again in Mindful New Year's. You can check that out if you want more. And really, to get a great interpretation of it, you really do need to get a one-to-one reading. So if you want to schedule a reading, we can look at this, because it's going to depend where K2 is placed in your chart, what house, sign, nakshatra, aspects, things like that. And then the sub dashas as well, because we go through all the other grahas through 5 layers of sub dashas. So that's how we know what exactly is going on right now versus just the whole 7-year period of the Ketu Dasha. But if you're in it, you're closer to spirituality than any other time of life. So see that as a gift to connect more to what really matters to you and let go of what it's time to let go of. If you are in the Venus Mahadasha in 2025, this is a time that is highlighting your relationships. It's a 20-year cycle. So there's a lot of room to learn a lot about relationships, about what creates harmony in your life, about what you really love, what you're really passionate about, where your desire is, what you want in life. And this means when there's lessons, when there's fruit that is ripe to be eaten in the dasha of Venus, is like more likely that people get married in the Venus dasha, more likely to have children, to build a family, to create more financial abundance in the Venus dasha. So this is a time where you are emphasizing these parts of your life. In 2025, Venus will go retrograde and be exalted. So there's a lot of need for you, especially, to look back at lessons you've learned in relationships and improve upon them. If there's unresolved stuff from an old relationship, this is a great year to resolve it, especially in the spring. It's a good year to come back to things that you feel expressed in creative expressions, artistic expression, pottery, crafts, art, anything like this, music, singing, dance that you love or have loved in the past that you might want to come back to. It gives you a sense of freedom because Pisces is about freedom and Venus being there is exalted. So this is a very, very positive year in the whole. And it's a great opportunity to connect to those things that you love again and improve your relationships. And if you are in a relationship that's no longer serving you or harmful in some way, it is likely it will end because Pisces is about freedom and escape. And if you feel trapped in the relationship, if it doesn't feel nourishing and supportive, and you feel like you need to get out of it, the Venus and Pisces energy has that ability to just let it go and just, okay, why am I still here? Kind of thing. And that could be a relationship. It could be something that you used to love in the past that you no longer have the love for. It could be some form of creativity or artistic expression that you no longer love, that you want to let go. And the other angle of this is like rather than just letting it go, it is now you're letting in a more spiritual element to it. So the relationship could stay, but it needs to bring in more of a deeper meaning, some sort of connection to source or spiritual path or religion or whatever that is for you. But this Pisces energy is very much beyond the physical world and beyond the boundaries and the control and has to be this way kind of thing. So there's a desire to break free in 2025 to find the sense of spaciousness and openness and freedom. And if you want more, go to Mindful New Year for more of a written report on this. And really to know what it is for you, get a reading with me because we look at where Venus is placed in your chart. And that's going to give us a lot more detail on what themes are coming up in 25. If you are in your sun dasha and you go to my chart calculator, you see SU. That means you're in the sun Mahadasha right now. This is the shortest dasha, 6 years long. The longest one is Venus at 20 years. And the shortest is Sun at 6 years. Why is it this length? It's another story for another time. But it goes by pretty fast. And when I talk to people in their sun dasha, it's like, wow, it's just flying by. Its sun is what brings an emphasis to where you are in the spotlight, where you are a leader and you step into more roles of leadership and responsibility and achieving goals and being recognized for your gifts and more expression. And you step into more roles of responsibility and authority, and it just moves quick. It just feels time seems to move fast in the sun dasha. So if you're in that this year, you can expect this year to have this kind of energy. And you do want to look where sun is placed in your chart. It makes a very big difference with the sun, especially. So if it's in your 10th house, big emphasis on career. If it's in your 7th house, big emphasis on relationships and so on. So you want to know the signs, houses, and nakshatras. And we can do a one-to-one reading if you want more detail on this. But for everyone in the sun dasha this year, there is a big opportunity to be more visible in your work, be more seen and successful. So this is a very important time to focus on goals and be more in the sort of yang energy of productivity, achievement, success, orienting towards what matters to you. Now, you might have other placements in your chart where this all sounds terrible. You don't like that kind of stuff. That's okay. You might find that's not quite your cup of tea. That's okay. But generally, with the Sun Dasha, you're going to feel most alive and inspired and invigorated when you are being seen and being out there more, being visible. And that can be very scary for some people, very vulnerable. But that is part of the lesson of the sun, because the sun needs to be seen. Like if you've ever been to somewhere like London or Portland where it's very gray and cloudy, it's kind of depressing, kind of brings the energy down a bit. It's kind of a sadder energy versus somewhere like along the equator, like the tropical climates where the sun is out and visible most of the time. It's generally a more happy, uplifting kind of energy, more energizing. And we actually need that vitamin D exposure for a lot of health functions in the body. So the sun is a lot of times described like the conductor of the symphony. Like the symphony's all there ready to go, but without the conductor, they could play their instruments, but they'll get out of tune, they'll get out of sync. So the sun for all of us is like the conductor of the cells of our organism, of our mind, of our body. So when the sun dasha is here, you are stepping more into that role of the conductor of your life. Now, how do you want to conduct your life? Do you want to have goals? Do you want to be responsible? Do you want to have more authority? Or is that just something that you don't feel comfortable with? Or maybe you just feel insecure, you need more support with it. This can be supported a lot by having mentors or guides or teachers in your life. So the sun is actually sort of a connected energy to, that's a sattvic energy. So in the guna system, without getting too far in the Vedic philosophy, but there's this idea that there's three types of energy, and the most positive, peaceful, harmonious, beneficial energy is the sattvic energy or sattva. And the sun, moon, and Jupiter are all the sattva grahas or sattvic. And so when you have this sun dasha here connecting with the moon energy, like the lunar energy, the yin energy, the receptivity, and the Jupiter energy, teachers, wisdom, expansion, the gurus in your life, this benefits you a lot as well. So this helps you step into leadership, authority, achievement, success. And I've seen a lot of people go through this sun dasha and have massive success and achievement in their lives and more recognition than ever before, more status, getting featured on different online platforms, things like this. So it can be very good for you in a lot of ways, but it can be a bit exposing and a bit vulnerable to be seen so much. And the next dasha you'll go through after the sun is the moon, which is a more yin energy and more internal and longer. It's 10 years when you get to the moon dasha. So that's a time where you kind of emphasize the opposite energies. But while you're in the sun dasha, it goes by quick, and it's a good time to really ride that energy out and just be in the spotlight, be seen, be visible, share your gifts, and do things to step outside your comfort zone, take on more responsibility and leadership, and know that it's just a phase that will pass pretty quick. And when you get to the moon dasha, you'll want to slow down more and be more internal. But while you're in the sun dasha, ride that energy that's here, that wave of momentum. In 2025, like any year, the sun is going to go through all 12 signs of the zodiac because this calendar that we use is a solar calendar. So in a way, it's not that different. Like any year, the sun dasha is similar in that way, where it's like it's just going to go through all 12 signs. But this is a great year overall for everyone in the sun dasha to emphasize these things I mentioned. So hopefully that's helpful for you. If you want more detail, we can look where the sun is placed in your chart and in what sign and house, and that's going to give us a lot more detail of how this shows up for you. If you're in the moon dasha in 2025, you're in a 10-year cycle. And depending how far along you're into it is going to make a difference. But anywhere in that 10-year cycle, you're emphasizing the more yin lunar qualities of the universe, more receptivity, more internal energy, more nurturing, more connection to your emotions, more emotional intelligence, taking care of your domestic life. This is a great time to become a mother if you are or have been, or even a grandmother, and to also connect to the female energy, the nurturing, nourishing energy in your life from mother, mentors, friends, girlfriends, teachers, any sort of female siblings as well, grandmothers, aunts, nieces. This kind of energy of the moon is very much connecting us to a need to be more nurturing and nourishing to ourselves and take care of ourselves. And like every year, the moon is going to move through all of the zodiac every month. So it moves pretty quick, right? We have the lunar cycle. And it's just like nothing too different year to year about the moon in that sense, other than like what else is going on in the chart or where it lands and what it's ruled by. And really, where you understand the moon dasha is by looking at the moon in your own chart. So it's really activating if you have, say, moon in Aries or moon in Taurus or moon in first or moon in second or whatever house and what nakshatra is going to tell you more like that is the theme of this time. So I'll give you one example. Like if the moon is in Aries and Ashwini in the first house, and you go into the moon dasha, there's a lot of emphasis on rapid growth for yourself, right? Because that's that example of moon and Aries in the first house in Ashwini. And I could go on like that, but I don't want to go too far in like in one interpretation. So you do want to start to look at your own chart and understand, okay, what does it mean to have your moon in this sign? And start there and start to analyze it. I always recommend, if you want a good resource to start, is the book Beneath the Vedic Sky. And of course, I offer readings and mentorship to go deeper in all this. But that's a good starting point if you want a good entry to understand in placements like moon in this sign, and then moon in this house, and then moon in this nakshatra. So with the sun and moon, especially, like you've got to look at just where it is in your chart to understand the theme of that year for that dasha. And then the sub dasha you're going through throughout the year. You probably are going to change sub dashas at some point. Not always, but it's likely with the moon dasha you will change this year. So then you look at that sub dasha, if it's moon Saturn or moon Rahu or whatever, like that is now activating that energy as well. But it's the main dasha is always the main one. For 10 years, you're going through that theme. So the overall thing I can say for everybody is that while you're in the moon dasha, just take care of the more yin energies in your life and emphasize those. But you really, for this one, you really do need to look at your individual chart. And for that, get a reading or that book, Beneath the Vedic Sky, I recommend. It's a great resource. And the free workshop I'm doing helps you start to understand how to interpret these things for yourself and how to get support with that. So for the Moon Dasha this year, if you're in it, 2025, prioritize things like going to massage, doing restorative yoga, getting time in nature, connecting to your emotions, emotional expression, having a support group or a men's group or a women's group or something like this. Being in counseling or therapy can be very beneficial. These are the kind of themes to work with during the moon dasha. If you are in the Mars Mahadasha in 2025, you're starting the year with Mars retrograde. So, very big emphasis for you to slow down, go within, do more restorative, resting kind of stuff. No rushing into the new year guns blazing, because you'll likely need to go over those things again, and you probably will overlook some things that are important at the beginning of the year. More likely to get injured, things like this. So, be careful with your energy in the beginning of the year, especially. But overall, when you're in the Mars Dasha, there is a lot of energy and a lot of desire to get stuff done, take action, be productive, and do the sort of typical Western world things that we celebrate so much, like achievement, success, goals, making more money, increasing your status, things like that, competing with others. These are some of the major themes for the Mars Dasha. It's a 7-year cycle, just 1 year longer than the Sun Dasha. So also like the Sun Dasha, it goes pretty quick. It feels pretty intense. There's a lot to get done. You're often in a very active life experience and work environment through this time. And it always depends on where Mars is placed in your chart. So look where Mars is sign, house, nakshatra to better understand it. But for everyone in 2025, there's generally this sense of starting a bit slower, but ramping up. And then by June, it's going to be a very powerful month for you and very powerful summer where you have a lot of energy to get stuff done. Now, just because that energy is there doesn't guarantee anything. It's like just because it's a sunny day out doesn't mean you're going to be happy. Just because it's a rainy day doesn't mean you're going to be sad. Just because you're in a Mars Dasha doesn't mean you're going to have great success unless you put in the work. It's kind of like if you go to the gym and you take a pre workout drink before the gym. That's what Mars Dasha is like. It's like you've got this pre workout drink in you, all this energy, caffeine, energy ready to go. Now, what are you going to do with it? And Mars is often described like a warrior on a battlefield, whereas Jupiter is the general who's dictating where the warrior goes. So if you don't have a general in your life dictating where to direct your energy, this could be a mentor, a coach, a guide, a counselor, a therapist, an astrologer, doesn't matter, but it's like some sort of guidance and direction for all that warrior energy. You're likely going to struggle more and flounder more if you don't have that guidance. If you look at any sports game, it's the same thing. Like Mars is the athlete, Jupiter is the coach on the sideline. If you look at a football team, they're just running a play that the coaches on the sideline dictated. And the quarterback looks like he's the one in charge, but it's actually the coach on the sideline. And the Mars, you look like you're the one in charge, but it's ideally there's a coach on the sideline for you who's guiding you. And that's going to help you harness this energy. And the same way, like a quarterback might be super talented and have all of the right criteria, but you need somebody with the big picture perspective on the sideline, like the coach who says, you're not seeing this, you're missing that, like avoid this. I've been there, I've seen this. Jupiter is that energy, like the guru, the mentor, the teacher has seen a lot already and seen things that you haven't seen yet. And ideally you have somebody who's achieved some sort of outcome that you want that you haven't seen yet, that they can help you achieve that. Like if you want to buy your first home, talk to somebody who's bought 100 homes and have them mentor you on how to buy your first home. It's going to be very easy for them, what would have been very hard and confusing for you. Or you can replace buying a home with any topic, but having somebody in your corner and your sidelines to help you is going to benefit a lot during the Mars Dasha. And especially this summer where you're going to have a lot of energy to use. So use it wisely. And you can start thinking about it now in the beginning of the year, like what might be coming up that you could direct the energy towards and who can help you do it. And then by the time you get to the time, you can sort of be in that performance kind of mode of achieving and acting and doing. So pretty exciting year for Mars Dasha to be in the Mars Dasha. But again, you do want to look at where it is in your chart to better understand it. If you are in your Rahu Mahadasha right now, and you go in my chart calculator, you see RA are the first two letters in the dashas. That means you're in the Rahu Mahadasha. This is an 18-year cycle, and it's often considered one of the most challenging dashas. So I don't sugarcoat things when I talk about astrology, and you might see some pretty negative things about Rahu Dasha online. It's true, yes, it can be challenging, but that's not the whole truth because everything has the potential positive, negative, and neutral energy. And I've seen plenty of clients who go through the Rahu Dasha and have great successes in their life, no major complaints. And it's even sometimes I've heard people say it's one of the best times of their life. So you do want to look where Rahu is placed in your chart. That makes a massive difference. And you want to harness the Rahu energy, which is a passionate, driven energy. So throughout 2025, you'll likely feel this desire to move towards more innovative, authentic, unique expressions of yourself, because Rahu is moving into Aquarius. Aquarius is that innovative, authentic expression of yourself. It's a utopian, idealist kind of energy. So for everybody in 2025, for all people, regardless of their dasha, they're going to move into this more utopian kind of vision of society and ideals and wanting to improve themselves, improving society, wanting to improve their health, their relationships, all areas of life, and be more of this sort of visionary, like anything is possible, hopeful kind of energy is going to be pretty strong with Rahu into Aquarius in the spring of 2025 for everybody. For you specifically, it's going to emphasize that even more. So if you've been wanting to just like break out and do something different in your life, this is a great year to do it. If you've been wanting to connect to some sort of unique community or niche community that you're really interested in, like maybe going to some sort of retreat or festival, there's all sorts of these things around the world. If you don't know about them and that sounds interesting, look, they're out there. Like I meet so many people all the time who are like, oh, I was in this commune for 6 months and, the middle of nowhere, and we just had 100 people and we all lived off the land. And these kind of things exist more and more than ever. So usually the people I meet who have been there or love those things are very strong Aquarius people, like Aquarius rising or Aquarius moon. But for everybody, in general, when Rahu enters Aquarius in 25, it emphasizes that desire and interest in that kind of lifestyle in that world. And it's going to create more innovation in the world, more technological breakthroughs. But for you on a personal level, because you're in the Rahu Dasha, is to look at where in yourself you want those things and how that could look for you. Now, it might be big, big life changes and moving around the world or something like that. It might be very minor and just changing like what you look at on your phone and what kind of apps you have on your phone, what kind of technology you're using. Maybe you move from a smartphone to just using like a timer in a basic phone. Maybe you get the newest gadgets and the newest technology, but it's some sort of change in like how you use technology, how you express yourself, what you're driven towards. And it's a good year for disruption and change in your lifestyle. So if you got a lifestyle or habit or something that's not working for you, this is a year where it's like easier to change it. I'm thinking of like when I was a kid and you have the baby teeth and like they start to get loose and it's like, oh, it's almost ready to fall out and you get your adult teeth. That's the kind of energy of this year in 25 for you in the Rahu Dasha. It's like the baby tooth is shaking loose and it's more likely to fall out soon and create space for you to grow into the adult tooth or the next phase of your life. So it's a pretty fun energy in that way. It can be a little overwhelming, it can be a little intense, it can be a bit erratic. And that's the dark side of Rahu. It's like, oh, the baby tooth is a little loose. I'm just going to tear it out, but it was too soon. Oh, now there's a lot of blood, pain, doesn't feel good. So it's this right timing of it as well. It's like, okay, I can feel the change is coming. I can feel the need for a disruption, but it doesn't mean I need to blow everything up and just suddenly change it or just rip the tooth out. Right? It's okay. It's coming. It's time. It's feeling ready, but I can be patient as well. And Rahu is a bit erratic and intense and wants to move fast and just go, go, go kind of energy. And let's just do it, whatever, who cares? But in this 2025, I think it's important to not rush it too much, not rip the tooth out too soon. Maybe you can wiggle it a little bit. I'm remembering when I was a kid and I had this and I would, oh, it's almost ready. It makes me want to just like, speed it up a little bit. And that's when I was actually going through my Rahu Dasha. So I was my first few years going through my Rahu Dasha, and I remember this like having the loose tooth, wiggling it. It's like, oh, come on, let's go. My mom telling me, don't rip it out. It's going to be really bad. But wiggling, it's okay. So that's, but it will come out, and that's the kind of thing. Like you will make the change. You will have disruption in your life. You will have innovation in your life this year. It will change, but don't rip the tooth out too fast. Like let it wiggle loose, and you can wiggle a little more, and you can explore this thing a little more, look at retreats, look at options, look at ways to express yourself, like making these little changes in your life. But no, it will come in due time. And then specifically what those changes are, you need to look at where Rahu is placed in your chart to better understand it. And you can do that with a reading or with the free workshop and start to understand your chart a little better. And Rahu Dasha is a long time, so no rush. You got plenty of time in this Dasha. If you are in the Jupiter Dasha in the year 2025, this is a big year for change for you. Jupiter is actually going to move through 3 signs in this 1 year, 1 calendar year. That's pretty uncommon. So Jupiter is a sense of expansion, growth, possibility. And when you're in the Jupiter Dasha, it tends to be a pretty optimistic, hopeful time. But need to say, I've known people in the Jupiter Dasha and they're like, where are the blessings? What's going on? You do need to look where Jupiter is in your chart, where it's placed, the dignity, planet, sign, house, nakshatra, aspects. So it's not just saying all Jupiter Dasha is always going to be the best time of your life. but it is one of the more positive dashas overall. It's going to likely bring in more blessings, more opportunity, more growth, more expansion. And in 2025, opportunities to expand your social network and connect with more people, opportunities to improve and increase your emotional intelligence and your emotional world, connect more emotionally with people. If you are thinking about becoming a parent, this is a very auspicious year for becoming a parent. If you have the ability in some way to time that out in some ways, then this is a positive year for that overall. If you're in the Jupiter Dasha, going to Jupiter and Gemini in the spring, summer, that's Gemini is the children kind of energy, and then Jupiter to Cancer in October. And then in 2026, Jupiter will stay in Cancer for its full ride. That's a great maternal energy and mothering, nurturing energy. So good stuff overall. And a great time to be finding new teachers, learning, exploring what you want to learn in life, and opportunities in education and philosophy, and just overall seeking out knowledge. Guru is the Sanskrit word for Jupiter. Guru is one who brings lightness into the dark. So there are likely going to be things in 2025 that you didn't even know that you didn't know, and then something happens and someone shines a light on it, a teacher, you read a book, you stumble on a reel on Instagram, and oh my gosh, I had this sudden epiphany and realization of this thing that's so important to me. I didn't even realize I didn't realize it. And that's what Jupiter does. It brings light into the darkness. And by virtue of just what the darkness is, you cannot see. And when you cannot see, you don't know what's there, but you shine a light and now you see what's there. So it's a overall positive energy, opportunity for a lot of learning and growth, and it's overall optimistic energy. But just know you might be in the darkness part of it still, waiting for that light to come in, that guru to appear, that teacher, that lesson, that wisdom, that insight to come. You can't force it, you can't make it happen, but you can create the circumstances that make it more likely, like seeking out things that you're interested in, teachers, paths, taking classes, reading, not with this sense of like trying to make it happen, that you make this discovery happen, you make this insight, not trying to force it, but yeah, being around that environment, the circumstances, opportunities, taking training, signing up for courses, taking classes, reading books, these kind of things are going to put you in the environment where you're receiving wisdom. You're seeking out what you can't see. You're trying to see things from a new perspective. You're trying to take in new insights and new lessons. When you're in the Jupiter Dasha, there's so much potential for growth, expansion, learning. So it's a wonderful thing, and overall very positive. But yeah, I have talked to people, they're in their Jupiter Dasha. It's like, when's it going to get good? And if you're feeling like that, that's something worth, it's good to have a sense of humor about. When the person I'm thinking of like had a good sense of humor about this. So that's really key. Like if you're actually getting resentful though, now you're going to have some problems. So this is not like, there's no guarantee of anything with astrology, but it is the potential, like knowing, okay, it's going to rain. So what does that mean? How do I work with that? It doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad. It's just rain. Jupiter, it's like, there's going to be abundance. There's going to be opportunity around you. There's going to be time for expansion and growth and more luck, more fortune. That doesn't necessarily mean good or bad. It's just what you do with it. So the universe is giving you more opportunities, more expansion here. And where it is, you're going to need to look at your chart, what sign, house, nakshatra. And that's where you're getting that expansion, growth, those lessons, the light and the darkness. And just approaching it like the Jupiter, the expansion, the growth. You can think of it like a fruit tree. Like we talk about this metaphor with fruit being ripe with the dashas. And you plant a seed and it's eventually going to bear a lot of fruit. But for a long time, it's just a little seed, then it's a sprout, then it's a little stump, and it's just like, where's the fruit? Well, just wait. It's growing, it's coming, just wait. And it might not bear fruit for a while. And depending on what sign it is in too, some signs actually bear fruit towards the beginning of a transit or towards the end of a transit. There's sort of front rising or back rising signs in the zodiac. So depending what sign Jupiter's in, you might find that right at the beginning of Jupiter Dasha, you had all this abundance and growth and expansion and positive energy, and then it kind of wanes out. or it's the opposite, or it ramps up depending what sign it's in. And then you get this at the end of the Jupiter Dasha, all the fruits come to bear. And it's just success after success and growth and growth. So it's going to be different for everyone, but that's generally what to expect in the Jupiter Dasha. But for 2025, it's just a lot of growth, a lot of change, a lot of opportunity through the things I mentioned. So a pretty exciting year overall. And it's a good time to connect with that energy. And if you feel disconnected from it, it's probably a need to seek out a teacher or a path or a course or a training or a spiritual path or a class or something that connects you more to that Jupiter energy. If you are in your Saturn Mahadasha during 2025, that means you went to the chart calculator on quietmindastrology.com. You see SA are the first two letters of the dashas. That means you're in the Saturn Mahadasha. This is a 19-year cycle. This is the second longest dasha, and it does feel long. It feels like lifetimes happen in the Saturn dasha. It's an opportunity to deepen your sense of responsibility and maturity in your life. You learn a lot of humbling lessons from teachers in your life. You learn where you need to have better boundaries in your life in the Saturn Dasha. It teaches you to slow down, teaches you to value things like meditation, mindfulness. Very valuable to go through the Saturn Dasha in your 20s and 30s when you're establishing yourself and your career and your identity, because it gives you a great sense of maturity at a young age, or anytime really before your 30s, because it helps you grow up. If ideally in your childhood you do have maybe you're in the Jupiter Dasha in your childhood, because it gives you that sense of playfulness and hopefulness, or maybe the Mercury Dasha in the childhood. But when you're in the Saturn Dasha, for all people, there's these lessons of becoming a wise, more mature person. In 2025, Saturn is going to go from Aquarius to Pisces on March 29th. So Saturn's ending its time in Aquarius. It's 2.5-year run. Throughout the Saturn Dasha, that's connecting you to more innovative energies, more of the sense of possibility, more moving towards this ideal lifestyle, this ideal utopia kind of vision of life. And then when Saturn moves to Pisces on March 29th, now you're moving into this time period that's emphasizing more letting go, more moving beyond your limitations, and a more of a boundless kind of energy to the boundaries, which can be quite tricky. Saturn is now ruled by Jupiter in 2025, which is not ideal for either one of them. So it's like you have this old man, Saturn, who wants things to be the way that they used to be, and simple and traditional and responsible and respectable and reliable. And it's having to answer to Jupiter, which is we need more growth, expansion, learning, more progressive energy. So it's quite different. Saturn wants simple, consistent, reliable things the way they've always been. Jupiter wants change. Pisces, especially ruled by Jupiter, wants just to let it all go. Let's just go beyond all these limitations, and that's all boring. That's too controlling. That's too strict. Let's have more freedom. Let's have more fun. Let's explore more. Let's have a new vision of the world. Let's just be meditating a lot. Let's just be in spirituality. Let's be in nature. Let's be free. And Saturn likes some of that, likes the simplicity of it. So this is a good year to keep things simple, but you may feel a bit pushed and pulled between like how much to let go, how much to control. But overall, the Saturn Dasha needs to have good routines and be grounded, be practical, think long term. So in 2025, no matter how good it seems to just let it all go or just start a new vision, stay true to what is working for you. Don't throw out things that are not working. If it's not broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. So keep what's working, build upon that, and yes, make room to explore things, go outside the lines, color outside the lines a little bit in your life, break some of your own little rules, test them out, but connect to what is really most essential. Like if it's really important for you to have a meditation practice, prioritize that, and don't just break all the rules and just dump all the toys out of the box and just start all over from scratch. Like keep the things that really work, and then yes, be willing to explore and go outside the bounds of it, It's starting from March 29th, and this is a 2.5 year cycle where Saturn will be in Pisces. Now, you might not be in your Saturn Dasha that whole time. You might be, but while you're in the Saturn Dasha, the major overall marching orders from the universe for you are to slow down, have teachers, have boundaries, learn about boundaries. If you don't know, read the book Boundaries by Henry Cloud. Have teachers, have mentors in your life. Give back, be of service. That is one of the biggest lessons of Saturn, especially in Pisces. It's find people who need help and help them. Help as many people as possible, internationally, locally, online, free. Like, don't worry about the fruits of your rewards. You focus on just service, and things will go a lot better overall. Donating, serving, giving, volunteering. Just give and you will receive. And you don't need to worry about the receiving part so much. Just give and focus on how much better you can help other people. And the Saturn Dasha goes a lot better. If you are in the Mercury Mahadasha in 2025, that means you go to the chart calculator at quietmindastrology.com. You see ME are the first two letters of the dashas. That means you're in the Mercury Dasha. Mercury moves quick. So every year it's going to go through the whole zodiac. It's always near the sun. The sun also is going to go through all the whole zodiac. The Saturn Dasha is a 17-year cycle. So Mercury is teaching us about how to communicate better, how to express ourselves better. It's connecting us more to the business orientation of marketing, commerce, trade, what you need, what I need, how we can interact with each other, exchange ideas, information, commerce, things like this. It's a time where you learn about what you really need to have to express yourself, how you need to speak, how you need to share your ideas, how you want to be heard in the world. People who are like entrepreneurs, online businesses, sharing their ideas, Mercury Dasha is wonderful. It's a great time to improve your marketing, your messaging, your communication, your sharing of ideas, your ability to do trade, because Mercury is a merchant energy as well. It's about finding what is fair for everyone involved and moving quickly. Libra specifically is more like what's finding fair and balanced, but Mercury is like, here's what I got, here's how it can help you, here's why you need it, here's why it's this price, here's how, it's very good and all things to do with commerce and sales and business. On a personal level, it's a great time to improve your communication skills and talk more, have more conversations with people that you care about, have more friends, more socializing, improve your social network, reach more people overall. It's a fast moving energy. So, this is a dasha where you're more likely to experience issues like anxiety, ADHD, overwhelm, having too much to do, just long to do lists, things like feels like life is moving fast, even though it's 17 years. This is like both a fast energy and it just feels like a long energy, like it's just ongoing kind of marathon. So, it's very good to be involved in some sort of small business or entrepreneurial effort because that's the nature of business. It's just rapid, continual change for a long time. And the businesses that are thriving and continue to thrive are the ones that just continue to adapt to change. So Mercury is the most indicative of business in general, and it requires a lot of communication, a lot of change. And that can be overwhelming. That can be burdensome. That can be very difficult. And Mercury is in Sanskrit, Buddhi, the intellect. So this is a great time in this Mercury Dasha to increase your intellect and intelligence, to learn more about what you love, to learn more about the people in your life, to read more books, to take on new ideas. Now, you might be the kind of person, you already do all that. You've read so many books that the Mercury Dasha, if you keep reading more books, you're going to get overwhelmed, you're going to get burned out, you're going to just feel more anxiety. So I recommend, if you haven't watched the movie Inside Out 2, the Pixar movie Inside Out 2, it's a very good movie about understanding anxiety and what it really is. And that's what can happen in the Mercury Dasha. There can be some anxiety on the negative side. So doing things to ground the opposite, right before the Mercury Dasha is always the Saturn Dasha. And the Saturn Dasha is where you learn about grounding, stability, security, inner strength, so that you have that sort of anchor or that center line where you can come back to when all these things are moving and changing in the Mercury Dasha. So if you feel anxiety, opposites create balance. And the Ayurvedic principle, like increases like, opposites bring balance. The Mercury Dasha, by its nature, is going to be rapidly changing and moving throughout all of 2025. Lots of opportunities for meeting people, collaborating, connecting, sharing ideas, business opportunities, new things on the phone, internet, like just like looking at basically if you're scrolling on your phone for hours, that's going to just amplify. Like increases like. It's going to create more and more of this Mercury energy that's already very much stacked in the Mercury Dasha. So you don't necessarily need more of that. You need more centering and then acting from there. And the communicating, trading, sharing ideas, all this kind of Mercury stuff from that center. And that center is going to be a little harder to find in 2025 as Saturn moves into Pisces on March 29th, where sense of boundaries is a little more elusive. So even more in 2025, if you're in the Mercury Dasha, very important year for doing grounding practices, literally getting bare feet on the dirt, in the earth, in nature, not looking at your screen. You might need a whole day every week where you just put your phone down. It might seem impossible. And that's how you know you really need it. Or at least a day in the week where you go get a massage, you just check out, you just relax. Because there is a lot of moving energy and a lot of boundless energy for you this year that can have you have major breakthroughs, major success, can also have major losses if you don't have that grounded, centered energy. Because you could just, oh, okay, yeah, I'll just put all my money in Bitcoin and see what happens, that kind of thing, and then you lose it all. Not necessarily saying I'm not making any prediction about Bitcoin right now. But I'm saying that kind of thing where you just, okay, it sounds good. Yes, going with my head, not listening to my body. I'm just going to do it. Whatever. Sure, we'll see what happens. Next idea, next idea, next idea. That's the Mercury kind of at its worst. And you're just rapidly moving around and you're not grounded. You're not really thinking it through. You're not listening to your body. And you make impulsive decisions that create more things for you to have to deal with later. And now you got to spend all day dealing with that issue and you got to put out this fire and you got to run around here. And these people are just like a tornado sometimes, and they just go, 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 and this and that. And it's like you've got like 8 limbs and you're carrying a coffee and a baby and you're running around and you're late. This is Mercury at its worst. So be aware of that energy. And all of that is like, slow down, slow down. That's all like red lights. The faster you're going, the more you need to slow down. So again, if you haven't seen the movie Inside Out 2, highly recommend that. Like, I'm going to say it's mandatory. If you're in the Mercury Dasha, you have to watch that movie. So that's how you avoid the negative side of Mercury that can come up here. And then it's important to remember the acronym HALT. So if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, you probably need to just stop. You need to halt for a moment. Hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, halt. Because again, the Mercury energy is amazing. So many benefits. It's what makes like all the technology move so fast. It's why we get a new iPhone every year, a new phone from every, Samsung every year. This new technology, that's Mercury moving, getting all the pieces moving. It's just these things happen fast and we get rapid production. And it's how you can get Amazon delivered to your door that same day. Whatever you want, push a button and there it is. You've got a new couch. Whatever you want. That's Mercury working at its best. But at its worst, it's anxiety and overwhelm. So if you're going in that direction, halt, slow down, just set a timer for 5 minutes and don't do anything. Put your hands underneath your butt if you need to. Sit on your hands, like whatever you need to do to just slow down. So I know a few people like this. I know I can get like this. I felt very seen when I saw the movie Inside Out 2. So I understand. I have a lot of Mercury energy in my chart and my life. So especially if you're working online, you got to balance that energy out. And especially in 2025, that energy is just going to rapidly, rapidly keep increasing as we move towards artificial general intelligence and AI is just moving rapidly in 2025. This is just changing the world. The whole world is changing very fast. And Mercury is that nature of change as well. So do like restorative yoga, massages, things like this can be very valuable to you this year to balance it out. But that's like an hour, 2 hours, maybe a day of the week. And then you got all this other time. You can do all the creative stuff you want, get all the stuff going you want on top of that. So to know exactly what it is, where it is, what's going on for you, you need to get your own chart and look where Mercury is in your chart, what sign, what house, what nakshatra, and then that's how you can harness it. You want to harness the Mercury energy, and it's amazing. It's so powerful to harness it, and you can create so much stuff and be so innovative, so intelligent, so brilliant, but you've got to harness it and direct it in a direction. And then you can create massive innovation, massive success in 2025. To know where it is, get your free birth chart at quietmindastrology.com. If you want more detail, get a reading with me. And there's more of this on the Mindful New Year at mindfulnewyear.com if you want to read more about the Mercury Dasha for 2025. So that's our look at all of the dashas for 2025. Thank you for listening and look forward to sharing more with you next time on the Quiet Mind Astrology podcast.